The morning Crossfire, because it's time when we look at what the papers are saying on the show. Welcome, I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
And I'm Sheriff Quadry. The papers are in, the verdicts have been served.
Verdicts indeed.
We have a Vanguard here, the Nation is also here, and of course, the Daily Trust newspaper.
The Guardian is our media partner. We have the paper here. We also have the Daily Sun. We have the Punch as well as the Daily Independent. And today, of course, you know the stories have been making the rounds. It's about the ministers across the papers. You find the pictures. Those who clinched positions, you probably thought they would not. And some who were returning to the same positions they had for those who were ministers the first term. You have this story across all the papers. Achike Chude will be joining us later on the show, but we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube at Nigeria Info FM. So we'll be reading your comment as we read out these stories. So head over to those portals to watch us and also leave us your comments so we can read them out right now while Achike Chude joins us. Let's start with this one. Worries over oil sector as Buhari returns as minister. You have three riders here. Fashola retains works, housing, loses power ministry to Maman. Aregbesola Akpabio Kayamo get Interior, Niger Delta Ministries. PDP faults alleged degrading of cabinet as aides to Abba Kyari. Also here on the Daily Sun, we have this headline. As ministers are assigned offices, Buhari, Adamu, Amechi, Ngige retain portfolios. Onu, Akpabio, Aregbesola, Fashola lead science, Niger Delta, Interior, Works and Housing. President creates 6 new ministries. We'll find the details shortly. The Punch newspaper has a banner headline, Buhari knocked for ordering ministers to report to Kyari. President reduces new officers to Chief of Staff's clerical aides. 2020 budget, your first assignment, presidency tells ministers. And here on the Daily Independent, of course, the banner headline, knocks and kudos for Buhari as he assigns cabinet portfolios. You have a number of riders on this one. Creates 5 more ministries. Retains petroleum portfolio. We are not impressed by ministers' portfolios, says Afenifere. Ministers' poor parade of recycled food travelers, says the PDP. Return of Sirica is good for the aviation industry, stakeholders say. Workers jubilate as Amechi returns to transport ministry. I don't know how Interior Ministry operates, says Aregbesola. And of course, he's been under fire for saying that since yesterday.
Right. That's mid-news still being talked about all over the country. Moving on to Vanguard right now. 6 new ministries created as ministers get portfolios. Riders here work to cut graft, fight security. Buhari tells ministers. As Lai Mohammed Ngige, Malami, Onu, Adamu, Amechi retain positions. What Buhari new ministers must do, APC, Pandef, Ohaneze, MBF, others. No cause for cheer, Afenifere, Oshintokun. It's poor parade, the PDP. A Vanguard newspaper with that headline. And you can see their pictures, some of the ministers on the front page of the Vanguard. If you like to know them and their portfolios, new and old, you get to see them there on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. Moving on now to the front page of the Nation newspaper. Fashola gets works as Ngige. Amechi Lai retain portfolios. Riders, Aregbesola is Interior Minister. Sunday Dare is charged of sports. Is in charge of sports. Reduces backlog of 20 million jobless, says Buhari. The Nation newspaper. And on the front page of the Nation, you could see the ministers from the Southwest and their portfolios. You could see their names there, just their names, and just below the nameplate of the Nation, you see their pictures of some of those ministers from the Southwest taking their oath of office. I can see Aregbesola here, Dare here, Fashola, Lai, and Senator Saraki, all on the front page of the Nation newspaper. Moving on to the front page of Daily Trust right now. Nigerians set target as ministers get portfolios. Nigerians set target as ministers get portfolios. Buhari retains petroleum. Fashola loses power ministry. Front page Daily Trust newspaper. And a caption on the front page of Daily Trust is showing President Muhammadu Buhari and some leaders of the APC, plus, of course, members of his cabinet, the newly sworn in ministers, or in this picture. The picture was taken just after the swearing in and the inauguration speech by President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday.
If you missed out on the list of ministers and you'd like to catch them, go over to our website, nigeriainfo.fm, and you'll find this list right there.
Right.
We'll also be taking your messages on this. I know we've started out with this on the chit chat, asking you what you feel about this list. I found it very hilarious when someone said power was taken away from Fashola. When you put it that way, you make it sound like, oh, he's got nothing anymore. No, it's not. So I said power has been taken away from Fashola. But this is an interesting spread. We have 7 female ministers right now. These 7 are Dame Pauline Talent from Plateau. She's handling women affairs. Bimtola Saraki from Kwara is in charge of, is the Minister of State for Transportation. Ramatu Tijani Aliyu is the Minister of State for the FCT. Sharon Ikeazo is the Minister of State for Environment. Sadiya Umar Farouk this is a new ministry, Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. Ambassador Miriam Katagum is the Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment. Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed is the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. And Achike Chude is here. Achike, good morning.
It's a pleasure. Good morning.
This new ministry is very interesting. Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development.
Yeah, it hit me yesterday when I was listening to the ministers and their portfolios. And obviously, it's a new ministry. But I guess that it's a reflection of the signs of the times. Disaster, humanitarian issues, and of course the country. I think it's a recognition of by the government that things are not as they used to be.
So we need a whole ministry.
There is a need for it now, especially in view of the.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the tendency, since we have all kinds of budgetary issues, monies that are needed for. So many other things. Of course, people have been talking about the need to trim down the ministries. And I think the president did give that impression at the initial stage, but ended up, with the number of ministries, perhaps because of the need to satisfy constitutional requirements.
What constitutional requirements are you talking about?
You have to pick up, ministries. People. You have to take up people from different parts of the country, every state of the country, to make up constitute the cabinet.
We had states that had 2 persons. I mean, so it couldn't have been because of the spread, because in some states it picked 2 people. So if it was a spread, it would have just taken one.
That was the contradiction. Of course, you have about 40-something ministries as against 36 states. That's where I'm going. So obviously, for whatever purposes, the president seems to have abandoned that need to trim down. Perhaps again, political expediency also overrides some of these other considerations. They've created that ministry. Obviously, Nigeria is a place where all kinds of things now happen, especially things that have to do with loss of lives, disasters, and the rest. For the disasters, when it comes to flooding and the rest, we understand. But there is also the human, made disasters, the killings that have been going on in this country. And of course, obviously, she's going to be overseeing, NEMA, the National Emergency, Management Authority Agency.
My question is, do we need a whole ministry for this?
No,
what the ministry means is it's a whole ministry.
Yes.
You have directors, you have departments set up, you have directors for these departments.
We're looking
at
workers, a whole new structure.
A whole new structure.
If you
buildings for them, maybe across the states.
If you ask me, I do not think we do. Seriously, if you ask me, I do not think we do. Because we already have structures in place, and of course some of these, the disasters we're talking about have been under a ministry before. So why create a completely new ministry?
Right.
Unless they feel that the enormity of the situation needs specialized attention. I don't know. Unless so.
Okay. What is your thought on what Aregbesola said, that he knows nothing about the Interior Ministry?
Well, it has caused a lot of controversy, and
Was it just being frank?
and people are now saying this is exactly why we said, look, you needed to attach portfolios to these people so that they could be questioned along these lines. But then, even if you had attached portfolios, the Senate has already indicated to us the kind of dispositions they have towards the challenges of this country. The take and bow syndrome would still have happened. They would have asked some questions that were not even related to the portfolios that are attached to these other individuals.
Right.
So that's just. But again, I know why some of these politicians talk the way they do, because all he needed to do was just to keep quiet.
Because I'm wondering,
said,
he was a former governor. That means he was in charge of a whole state.
But I like it.
What?
Funny enough,
you
I
said-
like
you
it.
said
I
this
think
because-
he's just being frank. He doesn't know what the interior minister's
Oh,
role is.
and-
Doesn't mean that he cannot do
No,
it.
he's-
Many of them don't know what
Yeah,
their ministries are
yeah,
about.
yeah,
It's just the truth.
Well, he's just being frank.
He's just being frank.
Maybe like you've said, and then maybe exposed himself in the process, because the reality.
But we
is,
don't like to
why,
hear the
why would
truth.
he not know what an interior
Why
ministry?
should he? Has he been working
why-
there
He
before?
has been
Why
governor
sh-
before,
Th-
just
that's
like
my
Sheriff
point.
said.
Did he
Yes.
work in the Ministry of Interior?
I have
Listen,
not been a
Wemimo,
governor before.
I don't think he needed to have worked there before
No,
he
it-
could
it
know
did not need-
what
it
interior
did- it
ministry
did
is.
not-
Exactly what he said. He said, aside what he has read, especially in the papers, he knows nothing about the workings of the
Why
Ministry of
didn't he
Interior.
know?
Why
He
should
was-
he know?
he was the
Is it-
governor.
We all got to know.
He was
he
in
got
the,
to know he was
in
going to
the
be.
Federal Executive Council. What
But
are
he
we
got to
talking
know he
about
was going to be
here?
a minister at the same time. We heard, right?
Interior Ministry is Internal Affairs Ministry.
But he doesn't understand the workings.
Unless he doesn't also know that it's the same thing. But even beyond that is the fact that, look, okay, I have not been a politician. I have not been a governor, but I know what an interior ministry is. And so when he says that, believe me, it's a cause for concern. Yeah, like you said, he's.
But
just
you all
been
have
talking-
said that it doesn't matter if they are not professionals in these things. Sunday Dare is handling youth and sports. I mean, they're all going to learn on the job. I think it was just being frank.
He could have just. he
But
could
they
have
would
just-
be learning on the
He could
job.
have just. He could have
Wemimo-
just kept quiet.
Wemimo, of course, you know that there's an expression we've been using for quite some time: hit the ground running. And, and so that goes contrary to what you've just talked about learning on. We don't need learners on the job.
But these
today.
are learners. I'm looking at learners here. But don't
Right.
worry, guys. We'll have a full
Right.
conversation
See them,
about
see them,
look at
see them.
them. They're all going to be learning
They're
on the
learners.
job. But Nigeria, we'll be reading your comment. There are lots of them coming up on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for being there. Let's see this next story. Electronic transmission of election results is illegal. INEC insists. This is on the front page of The Guardian. It's also on the Daily Sun. Article versus Buhari Tribunal reserves ruling. I didn't need to tender certificate to contest at all, says President. You lied on oath. Atiku and PDP fire back.
Yeah, look, it's funny. Of course, the issue of the server has been one of the biggest talking
Right,
points in
right.
the whole, petition.
We should
thing.
get INEC
You know,
here
but-
next
but-
week.
but-
maybe.
We should.
Yeah.
But
We should.
it would appear that all of a sudden they just realized that they didn't need to present a certificate. But even if you did not need to present a certificate, you make sure that if you presented one, that whatever you present is authentic.
Yes.
And that you do not lie under oath.
So you
And
don't say
guess-
I saw an
yes.
oath, but I really didn't need to do it anyway. But you lied under oath.
But you lied on that oath, so that becomes a
Right,
crime.
right.
It becomes a serious crime.
Right.
And so we don't. Again, you ask yourself, even the lawyers, the politicians, and the rest, what is the level of their intelligent quotient, their IQ, for them to be making this kind of statement in the open? Yeah, I didn't need to present a certificate, but you went ahead and presented the certificate. So why did you do that? And then when you now presented a certificate, it is one that has become contentious. And I think it's embarrassing, really.
Indeed. Moving on now very quickly. Taraba police killings. Wadume video worries joint security panel. That front page, Vanguard newspaper. Moving on to the front page of Daily Trust right now. Wadume arrested in own residence. This is credited to his neighbors. Daily Trust for you. And from the Nation, Army captain on my payroll. Wadume reveals.
Well, that is the biggest open secret that everybody knows about or knew before now. That is the reality. That was why things developed the way they did, negatively anyway. The reality is that we all know what is going on in the country, and we know that there's this synergy between security forces and some deviant criminals in this country. But even beyond that, again, is the relationship that important political personages in this country have, even with criminal elements.
Right.
The creation of some of these militant groups, you can trace them, their activities, to the relationship they've had with political actors in this country. So it is not a new thing for the security agencies to also be involved in the same kind of thing. They are masters.
Could this have been why it's been very difficult for us to tame kidnapping?
No, the reality is every problem has a solution, and we know that there's a solution to some of the problems we are having in this country. It's all about leadership. It's all about the will. It's all about having a sense of duty and commitment to the Nigerian nation. And again, the capture of Waduma, I think, is interesting. It goes to buttress the fact we have always known that when the police want to work, that they have the ability, even in spite of the lack of technology,
right,
in the way they go about their investigations. But I have always known that if they set their mind to work, they will work. And of course, you know that the Wadume issue was something that hit them at the bone marrow.
Right.
Seriously.
The complaint the panel has about this is that the police shouldn't have shared that video. We talked about this yesterday.
Right.
They're saying that it put the investigation, it puts the army in bad light, and there is an investigation ongoing. So why not just submit the video or allow the panel interrogate? And again, this amounts to parading a suspect. I mean, you put the suspect before the camera and say, talk.
It is good you're bringing this up, but can I tell you why it was done? It was deliberately done by the police.
Looks like it was deliberate.
No, it was deliberately done. The reality is that the whole of this process has had the police behave in ways that under normal circumstances it would not behave.
Right.
The reality was that the police found itself on the back foot. First of all, the army authorities immediately happened. Of course, you know what they did. They moved immediately to debunk the position of the police. The police was the one charged with investigation. They suffered, the consequences of the action of some soldiers. Instead of even a preliminary investigation by the Nigerian army, they came in immediately to defend their people.
Right.
You understand? And so the police really had no choice than to go to the court of public opinions, let Nigerians decide evaluate what has happened, and take a decision on that, and put pressure on the government to compel this kind of investigation that we're now seeing. And so the police obviously knows that this matter is beyond them, because if they come up with a resolution, for instance, that is not in tandem with what the police knows,
right,
then that matter is finished as far as the police authorities are concerned. So they have gone ahead of the panel. It might be wrong, just like you say, because the panel is still investigating. But it is because of the internal dynamics of the whole
But we all know
situation.
the drama that's playing out. It's like,
exactly.
let's show the people what we have.
Let us show the people. Let the people judge for themselves.
So media trial again.
So that if the army now comes up with something, or this panel comes up with something,
everyone had
completely
seen
diametrically opposed to what is going on, people will say, no, we're not satisfied with this.
Here is the downside to this, Achike, and I want us to be very factual on this. So the police took this matter to the court of public opinion, thinking that people will be able to see the real picture. Is it not the same police that will say that you are being insightful if you do such? You are putting people against the police if you're doing such as an individual, as a private citizen.
Yeah.
Now, it's the police that we're doing the same thing now, putting, supposedly the lives of our military men in danger because of reprisals from the general public. Look, kidnappings happen every day in this country. If it doesn't affect you, you don't know what it takes to have your person kidnapped. Before, if you have any idea, you know that people can, take out their anger on any uniformed military man they see that is, vulnerable at any point in time.
Can they?
Yeah,
really?
Well, maybe not at this moment, but he's also making a point. The reality is that
soldiers are fed.
Well, they say he who comes to equity must come with clean hands, and if you live in glass houses, you don't throw stone. The reality is that the police is now a victim of something that it has indulged in, in the past. But again, that reminds me of the former Inspector General of Police, Tafa Balogun, when he had issues.
Right.
This is somebody that had also acted in ways that were not in consonance with protecting the rights of fellow citizens, of Nigerians. And then when he now had an issue, he was calling on the same public that had been victimized to ensure that his rights are not denied him. And he was crying. He said he had fundamental human rights.
And the public were always here, right?
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Seems like the public has a listening ear. Everyone's just come on, we'll listen to. Let's move off this quickly because of our time and talk about electricity. NERC raises electricity tariff. Yeah, that's a headline on the front page of the Daily Independent. And there's another one here, a similar one. Federal government to boost electricity with 600 billion naira intervention. Let's talk about this new tariff. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has raised electricity tariffs to make them reflect the cost of production, ending years of agitation by power distribution companies to price electricity equitably. NERC published on its website on Wednesday a minor review of the 2015 multi-year tariff order for each disco, which will run from 2016 to 2020 or until another review is carried out. So this, according to the document, became effective from July 1st, 2019. So
it's a scam. Let me just tell you, it's a scam. It's
How so?
The whole thing is a scam, and I will tell you.
But
why.
we'll be paying more.
I will
Yes.
tell you why. The basis of the privatization exercise was that the public sector cannot be trusted to perform and to deliver services and goods and services, and so they embarked on this privatization exercise. But mind you, if the National Bureau of Privatization, privatization had told us that over 400 private enterprises that were privatized, that is some years ago, about maybe 6-7 years ago, they told us this, about 10% were working optimally. So the whole exercise, to a very large extent, has been a failure. Now, what happens? They now sell major assets, electricity assets, to private individuals because the government cannot continue to put money in a sinkhole. And what happens? They now run into problems. The same quantum of electricity that they were giving to us when it was under public ownership is what they've been giving to us. The same crisis that bedeviled it under public and ownership is what we are seeing today.
We've had Mr.
And
Sam
on top of
Amadi
that,
on the
yes,
Money Crossfire,
yes,
and
yes.
he was in charge of this
Yes, of
deal,
course.
and he
Yeah.
pointed out that the problem from the scratch is that those that Nigeria sold to were incapable of running. So why did we sell to them?
No, that's an excuse. But we go there because they
And
did,
what happened when we run their
They
licenses?
did their due diligence. They brought in the auditors. They brought in the forensic experts and the rest. And then
And yet they were
came
incapable.
up. They came up with a business plan and said, "Look, this is doable. We are going to take it." And what has happened is that the government has continued to put money, and just like this 600 billion naira you're talking about, they have put over 1.3 trillion naira in private, enterprises, that monies that they could not put when it was under public ownership.
Right.
And this is what we're talking about. So we need to interrogate some of these narratives when it comes from these people, because the reality again is just like the banking sector is under private ownership, but over 60 banks in this country have collapsed, and each time they collapse, there is so much money, or our public money, that is put into the banks. The same thing happens with the airlines also. How many of them have collapsed? Over 1 trillion naira has been put, to revive all these private enterprises, and yet they are telling us that, look, the private sector is the way to go.
It seems we'll have this conversation again. Achike,
No,
but
we have to.
We must.
Unfortunately, we are not talking about the tariff. They were supposed to deliver. Now, the former minister of power, he's been divested of that portfolio, came at a time and told us that Nigerians should no longer hold the federal government responsible for not giving us light, that we should hold the discos responsible. I've never heard that kind of outlandish statement. And
we'll have more conversations, most likely in the coming week. We've had Dr. Sam Amadi here. We need to bring Dr. Ayo Ekpo also on the show. He also has an opinion about how the power sector would work. We'll look at this all in the coming week. But after the break, SANU and NASU have been on warning strike for about 5 days now, and they have an axe to grind with, of course, the Minister of Labour is directly in charge, and he has returned. So they'll be joining us live in the studio to talk about their strike, their agitations, and what they think about the Minister of Labour and Productivity, who has returned to the same ministry. That will be after this break. Achike Chude would also be here with us, and you can watch us on YouTube and also on Facebook. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
And I'm Sheriff Quadry.
We are 99.3 Nigeria Info, the talk station of the nation. Let's talk.